Hello, welcome back to Shit Rentals with your host Purple Pingers. This one's going to be a really long one, so I'm going to put the full version up on YouTube, but I'll probably post a short version everywhere else. If you want to look on YouTube, have a squiz. If you don't want to, don't do that. So today we're in South Australia. We're at 26 Graeber Road. And this property is on the Substandard Properties Register, which is a neat little thing that South Australia does, which is if a house is fucked, you can report it to the government and they'll go check it out and give a housing improvement order. And in some instances, they'll even put a rent control amount on the property, which means that a landlord can charge no more than the amount that they set because the house is that bad. This property is on that register, but there is no rent control amount. I spoke to the Housing Safety Authority in South Australia, and they let me know that the landlord does not have to provide the copy of the housing improvement order to a renter. They do have to provide it only to prospective buyers, and they do not have to provide the completion date to the prospective renter, and they also don't have to let you know if the house itself is actually on the register. So this tenant is an ICU nurse from New Zealand, so she was probably not aware of the intricacies of the Substandard Properties Register, which is honestly fair enough, because neither was I only found out today. Let's check out what this tenant's house looks like.
Hold the door! Oh my god!
Fucking fuck! Stop!
Oh my god!
Fuck!
So that's just a couple of really short videos. There's heaps more photos of just some terrible stuff happening with the property. To be fair to the real estate agency, they have been pretty on top of whenever the tenant emails them, except until today when we both reached out to them. The tenant has had 22 trades visits since August 2023, which I feel like is a sign that maybe the house isn't up to scratch, but that's just me. And yeah, let's go through some of the pickies. So here is a wall that is caving in with the steel kind of rusting, which is really good for concrete, I imagine. Here's a dead mouse. Here's a horrifying thing that I never want to see again in my whole life. I don't even know what this is. There's just dead insects and animals kind of all throughout this house. The house is literally just falling apart around the tenant as she and her daughter live there. This is a hole in the roof where a tradesperson fell through when they were fixing something in the roof cavity. If you zoom in, you can kind of see some exposed beams in the ceiling that look very burnt, as well as what looks like probably a demon, I imagine, but I'm not an expert on that. As you saw before, if you press on the ceiling, the whole house kind of lifts up and drops just insects kind of everywhere, which is really lovely. And also it's a really old heritage listed house, so a lot of the kind of fittings and fixtures are really solid, like that cornice that fell. And this tenant has a 9-year-old daughter with an assistance dog, and she doesn't want anything to fall on her daughter and injure her, which is honestly, I think that's a fair thing to be worried about. I spoke with her yesterday, and she said that she honestly really regrets coming back to Australia, and I don't blame her for it, because she's lived in quite a few really terrible properties, and I feel like this housing situation that we find ourselves in should be our international shame. This is really horrible, and our politicians aren't really doing anything about it. So I reached out to the local member, the member for Taylor, which Smithfield is in. He also happens to be the Minister for Housing and the Minister for Planning and all that kind of stuff. This is his response. Dear Jordan, thank you for your correspondence. The images provided are extremely concerning. I will absolutely agree with that. As the property at the centre of the inquiry appears to be a private rental, it's governed by a private leasing arrangement. So pretty much a different minister. He's the minister for kind of making housing decisions more generally in housing policy. Chucks me on to the Consumer Affairs Minister, which is, like it's a fair enough thing, but I was kind of reaching out to him as the member for that particular electorate, not as the member for housing. Anyways, and then he made, a couple announcements, which I think are good announcements about increasing the number of affordable rentals in South Australia, but they not really relevant to this particular person's situation. But thanks for responding, I guess. I genuinely appreciate that. The other minister's response was not particularly overwhelming or good. We've made some reforms to South Australia's residential tenancy laws, the biggest in a generation, which really isn't going to do anything for this particular tenant. They said, we've increased the notice period for ending a tenancy and that most landlords do the right thing. However, no one should have to live in a home that is unsafe, which this tenant does at the moment. They've also said that landlords will need to ensure premises comply with minimum housing standards prescribed under the Housing Improvement Act 2016, ready for occupation. Tenants will be able to give notice of termination if the premises don't comply, are destroyed totally, rendered unsafe, or for other prescribed circumstances. In addition, tenants will be able to give the notice of termination if they require certain care or temporary crisis accommodation and need to vacate to obtain it. They will also be given notice if they have accepted accommodation by the SA Housing Trust or a community housing provider. These are all really great reforms. These are absolutely incredible reforms, and I'm really happy about them. The problem is that they rely on a renter to enforce those rights, and renters who enforce those rights often face retaliation in incredibly unfair formats, and this is probably what's going to happen here. Like, I'll show you the emails between myself and the real estate agency responsible. Also, I feel like this is definitely taking away from the seriousness of the situation, but it is serious regardless of the microphone stand, I promise. So I reached out to this tenant's property manager to give them a right of reply to the story that I'm writing. I called her this morning. She didn't respond, so I sent her an email and I asked her a few questions. I first wanted to say that, hey, I'm writing a story on this property. I want to preface this and say that I'll be noting in the story how responsive you and Turner, the real estate agency, have been with respect to maintenance concerns at the property. I've been told that trades have visited the premises 22 times since August 2023. With the above in mind, would you be able to comment on the following? Number one, the house is fucked. Everything's falling down and there's a number of insect and vermin infestations. I note that the property is listed on the substandard properties register. Was this disclosed to the tenant prior to their lease? Has the housing improvement order been provided in full to the tenant? No. What is the date of the required completion listed on the above order? They've not said. If the tenant wishes to break their lease due to the poor condition of the property, would the landlord and Turner release them from the lease without penalty? The property manager didn't respond to the email. I did forward it to the manager director of Turner Real Estate, and you'll probably love this response. He said, "Hi Geordie, there is no story here, full stop. Thank you for noting how diligent we have been as a property manager, and this diligence and care for the tenant and landlord is ongoing and is a private matter. You are receiving and asking for information from one party, the tenant, with no balance, history, or perspective from anyone else. Regards." It's funny because in this email, I was literally asking for his perspective and his side of the story, and he was like, "You're receiving and asking for information from one party," which is just objectively wrong, because I don't even know how else I can explain that. So I responded, "Hey Lachlan, thanks for your response. Are you sure? I'm giving you a chance to tell your side of the story here." And then sent him, just some pickies. He responds, "I'm all for exposing any individual or corporation for bad practice, cheating, or lack of integrity, but only in full caps where it is justified. Your role in society no doubt works well at keeping a few people more honest, and I do support that part of what you do. Thanks, buddy. What I will never tolerate is sensationalism, bias, and a lack of facts and perspective before any type of defamation or persecution is perpetrated," which is exactly why I'm reaching out to get his side of the story. But it seems like he's the one kind of sensationalizing the situation. I literally just sent him photos of the property and asked him a couple of questions. "I have no case to answer with you. This is not about you. Considerable management has already taken place and is actively ongoing. Anything you dare to publish will be baseless and therefore meaningless and devalue your own integrity. I somehow doubt that. Not that I need or want to, but I will call you tomorrow. You will soon realize there is no story, as I have already said." I very much look forward to that phone call. COVID in particular has brought on financial hardship, increased mental illness, and enormous stress for many in real estate. Tenants, landlords, and the people who work in the industry, particularly property managers. 99% of real estate people are great people, but there are a few bad eggs, like there are in all walks of life. Did you see the story last week that a property manager here in Adelaide was stabbed to death? Fucking stabbed to death. Have you written about that? No, I haven't. I also didn't see that, but I'm sure you saw it somewhere and someone's already written about that. Also, you're welcome to write about that. That's horrible. I'm sorry that happened. Also, I didn't do that, just in case you were wondering. That's the managing director of Turner Real Estate. I don't know about you, but it just kind of screams professional. It screams that, they're doing absolutely the right thing. They have nothing to worry about. And, that's just a perfectly normal, fully hinged response to give someone asking you a couple of questions about a property that you are responsible for. So for obvious reasons, this tenant is looking for a new house to live in, mainly because her one is falling apart. So if you know anyone kind of in the Adelaide and surrounds area, please reach out to this email address. I'll post it here and in the links and stuff. But yeah, please let them know if you've got a place that they can live. Their real estate agency doesn't sound that nice, just with that kind of context in mind. Also, thanks to everyone who made it this far into the video. I really appreciate it. I do all of this stuff kind of for free. So if you could support in any way, if you can and can afford to, by buying merch or spreading the word about shitrentals.org or joining the Patreon, would be really appreciative. I would be really appreciative. It's pretty stressful getting calls and stuff from real estate agents who are completely unhinged, but it is part of the job, and I do secretly enjoy it just a little bit, but not that much, just a little bit. Also, I got this sick shirt today from my union. I don't know if you can see that, but I think it looks sick. Thanks for listening. Anything else? Beautiful.